Have you ever heard a song that was so wild, so completely unexpected, that it made people, well, start a fight? I'm not kidding. Today we're talking about a composer whose music literally started a riot. We're talking punches, yelling, the whole 9 yards. So, can a piece of music actually start a brawl? You think, no way, right? But for this one composer, Igor Stravinsky, the answer was a huge, resounding yes. Just picture it. You're in a fancy theater for a world premiere, and the music starts, and the whole audience just erupts into chaos. Okay, let's set the scene. We're in Paris, the year is 1913. It's the premiere of a brand new ballet at a super fancy theater. The lights go down, everybody's expecting something graceful and pretty. But that is not what they got. Yes, so what happened next was insane. People started shouting, they were throwing stuff at the orchestra. Actual fistfights broke out in the aisles. The police had to be called to calm everybody down. And this wasn't some punk rock show, this was a ballet called The Rite of Spring. So what on earth was in this music that made people lose their minds? And who is the guy who wrote it? To figure that out, we gotta rewind a bit. The composer's name was Igor Stravinsky. He was from Russia, and his dad was a famous opera singer, so music was definitely in his blood. But believe it or not, he wasn't even supposed to be a musician. See, his parents had a plan for him: study law, become a lawyer, get a nice, safe job. But Stravinsky, he was completely obsessed with music. He got a major level up when he started taking lessons from this super famous composer, Nikolai Rimsky Korsakov. And Rimsky Korsakov basically taught him all the rules of the music game, which, as you're about to see, was perfect because Stravinsky was getting ready to break every single one of them. Okay, so Stravinsky's big break came when he moved to Paris and teamed up with this legendary ballet company called the Ballets Russes. These guys were known for being total innovators, and together they dropped 3 ballets that pretty much turned the music world upside down. Now, check this out. What's so wild is how fast his style changed. I mean, look at the years here: 1910, 1911, 1913. In just 3 years, he goes from this beautiful, magical fairy tale music to something weird and clashing, and then boom, something totally raw and aggressive. So first up was The Firebird. This one was a smash hit. It was based on old Russian folktales, and the music was just shimmering and magical. It made him famous like overnight. You could call it his viral debut. Then, just 1 year later, he writes Petrushka. Now, this is a story about a puppet that comes to life and starts having real human feelings. So Stravinsky had this challenge. How do you write music that sounds like it's part toy, but also part human? Well, he did something incredibly clever. He invented what we now call the Petrushka chord. It's basically 2 completely different chords mashed together. You know when you're scrolling through your feed and you accidentally hear 2 videos playing at once? It sounds kind of weird and off, right? That's exactly the feeling he was going for. It's supposed to sound like an internal conflict, and it was a huge clue that Stravinsky was more interested in telling a story than making things sound nice. And that brings us back to the main event, the riot. The Rite of Spring was something totally different. Forget pretty melodies. This was all about raw, powerful, driving rhythm. It was aggressive, it was intense, and for an audience in 1913, sitting in a fancy concert hall, it was an absolute shock to the system. So how did he do it? How did he create sounds that were so shocking? Well, Stravinsky basically had 2 secret weapons, kind of like cheat codes for composing music. First up, rhythm. Most music has a steady beat, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Something you can tap your foot to. Stravinsky threw that out the window. He put loud, explosive accents in totally random places. It feels unpredictable and jarring, almost like a glitch in a video game that keeps you totally on edge. His second secret weapon was orchestration. Think of the orchestra like a high-end gaming PC. Stravinsky didn't just use the default settings. He overclocked every single instrument to get sounds nobody had ever heard before. Like right at the beginning of The Rite of Spring, he makes a bassoon, which usually plays low, mellow notes, play this ridiculously high, strained sound. It was completely weird and totally genius. So, after causing a literal riot and becoming the most famous and controversial composer on the planet, you'd think he'd just stick with that style, right? Wrong. Stravinsky's entire career was about never doing the same thing twice. He was always changing the game. Just look at his career. He goes from that powerful, explosive Russian period we've been talking about to a totally different style called neoclassicism. Here, he's looking back at older composers like Mozart and writing music that's way more balanced and clear. And then, when he moves to the US, he changes again, exploring this super-structured, almost mathematical kind of music, even in his 70s. This guy never stopped evolving. So let's get down to it. Why are we still talking about this guy more than 100 years later? What was his ultimate impact? What's his final score? Well, his influence is just massive. He proved that rhythm could be the main event in music, not just the background. His ideas influenced everyone, from jazz musicians to the people who write the scores for your favorite movies and video games. He showed that artists don't have to stick to one thing. They can reinvent themselves over and over. But if there's one big takeaway, it's this. Stravinsky showed the world that music didn't have to be nice. It could be raw, it could be powerful, and it could be revolutionary. He taught us that creating something new isn't just about ignoring the rules, it's about knowing them so well that you know exactly how to break them. He was a true game changer. So I'll leave you with a question to think about. In your own world, what rules are just waiting for someone like you to come along and rewrite them? Thanks so much for watching.